So this lecture is on flipping the classroom, and we're going to be discussing online versus face-to-face and all things that revolve around flipping the classroom. Do you currently flip your classroom? So what I would normally do is give a poll, and we would use something, either Poll Everywhere or clickers or something of that nature, and allow you guys to engage that way. There's also another software called Adobe Captivate where you can build into the slides, where your students can interact. Even if they're watching it, asynchronously like you are doing now, they would be able to engage in a lecture. But since I'm not using that software, we'll pretend that you've answered. And so I'm going to say, oh, well, none of you have flipped your classroom. Great. So this is an overview of what flipping the classroom means. It allows students to be more present in the classroom. So if you think back as your experience as a student, if your instructor just lectured to you for an hour or however long the class session is, although you may be physically present in the classroom, you may not be fully engaged because all that's being done is lecture. So it may not require you to truly participate in the learning experience. You're just being a recipient of all this knowledge that your instructors are providing. So what this does is it allows your students to watch the lecture online prior to class, in addition to reading the materials and all that foundational information that they should know. They do that prior to coming to your class. So when they come to class, they're ready to actually apply their knowledge. So that's a great way for you to do your bell ringers, and you can see what students learn from the previous night where they were supposed to do the reading and reviewing the lecture. And that's a quick check to say, okay, I can see from, question 5, how you guys answer that one, that there was some confusion on this particular concept. Let's go over that. And so if you do lecture, it's more what I call not what I call, but what's called just-in-time teaching versus just a lecture over everything. And, students may have grasped that or not, and it's really not necessarily taking students to the next level. So once you've quickly identified where there's holes, you address those in maybe what I call like a mini lecture, and then the next phase of your classroom would be the actual more application, either doing problems, a project, something that really allows you to be able to assess your students' conceptual understanding of the concepts that you wanted them to learn. So there really isn't direct instruction. Your role as the instructor is really as a facilitator. You do your direct instruction prior to the actual classroom setting. You do that in your recorded lectures or podcasts. So the role of a student is to take responsibility for their own learning, both inside and outside of the classroom. It really doesn't take long to change behavior. As a teacher, I think zeros are very powerful. So if you have some, quick quizzes early in the year, early in the semester, where they don't hurt much, they may be like 0.2% of a grade, but a 0 speaks volumes to students. So if you assess them harshly using behaviorism, it will help shift the culture of the classroom, so students realize, oh no, when Miss Taylor says to read and watch the lecture, she means it, because we're going to be assessed, and everything we do in class is based off of that foundational knowledge that we were supposed to get the night before. So it really forces the student to be truly a learner. And, again, you're going to serve as a mentor. As students are working on their projects, their problems, you're walking around, you're seeing what they're doing, answering questions, pushing them further past just the, do you know the vocabulary? Can you use the vocabulary? Can you apply it? Can we have a more in-depth conversation about these different phenomenons and, whatever it is that you're studying? So, if you're teaching K to 12, there are roles for parents. And I know some of you are saying, well, I might teach in a high need school. They don't have access to the internet or this, that, and the other. You'll be surprised. There's a lot of funding that's out there that's making this whole idea of flipping the classroom accessible for more students than you think. And so you may get to a school where this is the norm. So I want you to be aware of it and to be able to help your parents who this may be foreign to them as well. So, helping them learn how to provide an environment that's conducive for this type of learning. Um, letting the parents know that they too can listen to the lectures and they can learn with their child. Some of them, it may have been, 20, 30 years since they've taken, high school biology. So this is a great time for them to learn together. And to help their students also stay on task and pacing as well. So if the student says they're watching a lecture and they're on YouTube not researching something that was based on the lecture, the parents can get involved as well and to help monitor what the student is doing at home to help them stay on task. So the role of technology, creating videos, and we see from this particular assignment there's tons of different ways that you can create videos that get the job done. So you'll find a format that works best for you. If it's just setting up a little camera and a tripod and you're just working problems at the board and that works for you, or you have a piece of paper and you have a camera kind of held with a tripod angling down on you as you work and you write, that works fine. Or you could use some of these other tools that we're using, Camtasia, Jing, all the different types of screencasting software that's available that will allow you to do lecture capture. And then again, making it available in whatever learning management system, Blackboard Learn, Moodle, and of course Google Classroom. There's benefits of flipping a classroom. It does develop a culture of learning, and it really helps your students, especially your K-12 students, prepare for college. Because in college, there's not a lot of hand holding, so students need to learn how to learn and how to ask questions, how to advocate for their learning. And this flipping of the classroom really does create that type of environment. So it focuses the shift to not just sitting in a lecture, but actually completing assignments and really making sure that the students actually have that depth of knowledge that they don't necessarily get from some of the traditional ways of learning. So is there a difference between a flipped classroom and an online classroom? In some of my online classes, if I were to do this particular assignment, I would send you in breakout sessions if we were meeting synchronously. I would send you in a breakout room where you would go with 2, 3 other people and kind of discuss what are some of the pros and the cons. So you can do these types of things depending on how you choose to flip your classroom. You could do, or if you choose, how you choose to teach online. Here at UTC, we do, and especially in the School of Education, we do a lot of asynchronous types of lessons. And asynchronous means that it's online, but students just come and go, and they're not in at any particular time. And same thing with the instructor. Synchronous means we're synced together. So we would have an online class that met every Wednesday at 5 p.m. on whatever platform, Google Hangout, Blackboard Collaborate, Adobe Connect, Zoom, whatever platform we chose to use. So if we were using that type of synchronous type of a process, I would have you do it that way. But since we're not, I just want to kind of give you some ideas on what you can do in your flipped classroom. You can ask questions in the lecture and tell the students to pause, or you can do wait time where you have a question up here and you have a interactive notebook that you have your students collect, and you set the timer for a minute, 2 minutes, and in that time period, students are expected to write their reflection, answer a problem, whatever it is that you want them to do. You can create your video however you want to make sure your students are engaged and getting the most out of it. So as you think about what flipping the classroom is, instead of you doing all of the lecture during that class period, it's done beforehand and students are using that time to actually be engaged and practice and develop their skills in the classroom while you're there to get more help. Is that right for you? Think about it, and some of you may not have a choice because that may be the culture of your school. So find how flipping can work for you, and that's what I want you to do for this particular week.